Exactly. Welcome to the Valisights podcast, the show for accountants, FP&A leaders, controllers, and CFOs who want to unlock the power of AI and strategic finance. I'm your host, Albert Ramos, and today's guest is someone who's been leading the charge in modernizing the way we think about FP&A. Paul Barnhurst, known across the industry, I bet you heard of him, the FP&A guy. He's one of the most influential voices in finance today. He's a Microsoft MVP, an AFP-certified FP&A leader, and a certified advanced financial modeler. But more than that, Paul's a creator, he's a teacher, he's a community builder, and he's just a great human family man. I love it. He hosts 3 major podcasts, FP&A Tomorrow, Future Finance, and Financial Modelers Corners. Take a look at them, check them out. There's amazing content on there. His content reaches thousands of financial professionals every single week, whether he's educating teams on Excel, Power Query, data storytelling, or interviewing rising voices in the FP&A world. Paul's mission is super clear: help finance professionals become true value creators. In today's episode, we'll go deep on AI in the FP&A space, how it's impacting modeling, forecasting, pricing, digital twins, decision making, and even mental health in the finance space for our finance teams. And of course, I'm excited to hear Paul's take on Valisights, the company I just launched. It's built to help finance teams move beyond static spreadsheets and into AI-powered insights, and as we love, without the manual work and the manual grind. So we're going to jump right into the conversation. Paul, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm not sure who you introduced, but I'm glad to be
here. You are the man, the myth, the legend. I know I've been on your show. I was so honored. I still talk to my wife about it. I loved it. I mean, it was so great to just have a conversation with you. We were talking finance, we were talking family, we were talking all sorts of things. And I feel even more honored that you even are taking the time to spend time with me today. So
and you were completely wrong on your prediction. Do you remember at the end what I asked you to predict?
What did you tell me? I can't tell. Remind me.
Who would win the Super Bowl?
Oh, that's right. and I was also wrong on your. I was also wrong on your March Madness
against Mahomes. And how did that work out for us?
Oh, that was so rough. What a rough game. And then I was even wrong on your Final Four. That was a great matchup. I mean, all across, I was so excited. I was following all along the way on LinkedIn. I'm sure there was a lot of people out there too. And that was so much fun. That was so much fun. I'm glad you did that, especially for us finance folks. We bring that to life. We make it fun. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it was fun. Surprisingly, best month I've ever had on my website for traffic.
There we go. Well, look, a lot of finance people are in the sports world. I like it.
People like picking their FP&A tools, I guess.
That's right. Well, one day, like I said, I got to work up to it. But one day I'm going to try to get Valisights. I'll get seeded. I'll get seeded so I can get placed in the tournament, and we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, I would love to jump right into your journey.
Of course.
What led you to become the FP&A guy? I mean, why does this space continue to energize you?
Yeah, really, I'd say for me, dumb luck. I say that kind of jokingly, but how the journey started, I started my career in procurement, quickly realized that was not a career for me, switched to, ended up going back to grad school, did a finance reporting role. I wanted to work a little bit in investment banking, but 2008, graduating was not the time for that. Took a role with American Express. And about a year later, an opportunity to get promoted came up that was an FP&A role. I applied for it. And that's how I got into FP&A. It wasn't, oh, hey, I want to go work in FP&A. It's, wait, I can get paid more money. All right, I'll take this role. I mean, being totally honest. And from there, I'd been with American Express quite a while, and I was supporting Traveler's Check. Not exactly a growing business in the last 30 years.
Great learning.
And so what happened is I realized, okay, I'm in a company that there's really not many roles in Salt Lake. I'm supporting a business that's dying, and I have no interest in moving to New York. So I'm like, I need to do something else. And I reached out to a guy by the name of Ken Fick. And I remember I offered him a Starbucks gift card for 30 minutes of his time. He said, I don't want your gift card. I want you to write an article for my website. He was an FP&A consultant.
Wow.
So I wrote an article for him and I ended up sharing it on LinkedIn. I wrote a couple more for him as well. He ended up going, I'll give you $100 to write me some more. I'm like, okay, I suck at writing, but all right, I'll do this. And then I volunteered to facilitate FP&A trends discussions At the time, their group was pretty big, is when LinkedIn was pushing groups. That led to being invited to do a few webinars. I started doing more and more on LinkedIn, really just trying to find a job. I wrote about FP&A software because I was interviewing with a couple of the companies, and they ended up not hiring me, but all of a sudden everybody reached out to me and wanted me to see their software. Later on, one of them tried to hire me as their marketing show pony, but I won't mention names.
Yeah.
Um, and so from there, December of 2022, what kind of happened is I was working for a company and I'd had some ideas of potentially starting my own business at this point. There might be something there, but about a 3-4 week period, a friend reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have this company that needs part-time support, like 15 hours a week consulting type thing for FP&A." I'm like, I could do something like that. I had someone else reach out to me around the same time, a guy I'd been on a webinar with saying, "Hey, I want you to design an Excel course. I've sold it, but I can't train it. I know you're pretty good technically. Would you do that?" We're partners today. We talk to each other almost daily. And 3 software vendors in 1 week reached out to me. One wanted to do a big collaboration, and the other 2 asked me about potentially applying for a job with them. And so at this point, I had a following of maybe 5,000 at this point. So it wasn't very big on LinkedIn. And I went to my wife. I'm like, I think I can turn this into a business. She kind of looked at me as crazy because we hadn't discussed it at all. And we talked about it for 6 weeks. And one morning she's like, "I'm
I always
good if
love
you
those
want
conversations.
to," she goes, "I'm totally good if you want to start your business. I'm comfortable with it now." I go, "Are you sure?"
Wow.
She's like, "Yeah, I'm sure." I go, "Are you really sure? Because I'm going to put in my notice today." I talked to my boss that morning, and here I am 3 years later, 3.5 years.
Wow. I've never heard that story. I've been following you for quite some time and, you're obviously further along in the journey now and you've continued to do amazing work. I mean, you're a master networker. And as I mentioned earlier, just a great person. It's so nice to chat with you and learn about just how important family is to you and I love your posts, and even as of recently, posting things that we need to talk about like mental health and some things that have occurred recently and you just tapping into family, tapping into the true purpose, what's your true meaning. I love your journey. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that look up to you and many new people that are learning more about you, and to hear that story, it's inspiring. Whether you want to continue up the corporate ladder, it's great, or if you're really getting that itch to invest in yourself as you did. And I just love that you brought up your wife and just having that support system
Mhm.
is so important. And you asked 3 times too. It's always good. Don't just go off the first yes. Ask a couple more times just in case.
Well, because I know she'd, been really nervous about it, as we all were,
Right.
and it's a
Yeah.
family thing. I'm not going to start a business until we're all comfortable because
Right.
the reality is it impacts everybody. It's not just my decision.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, just want to make sure you're sure because I will put it in today. I don't want to hear tomorrow. Nope.
Ready to rock. I
So,
love it.
and
Well,
she's
you've been
been
in
incredibly supportive. She's fabulous. So,
it's amazing. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. It's so great to just lift up the hood and talk about personal things too. And I really appreciate that about you. You've been so gracious to just share. Because we're all what we'll find is we're all going through some of the same things too.
Mhm.
You've been in FP&A across different industries, whether that be government or e-commerce, cybersecurity, and as you mentioned, some others recently, financial space, right? Have you seen the role shift specifically to FP&A leaders, FP&A executives? Has it shifted in recent years? And I know you've been posting about it, but if you don't mind sharing just how you've seen the role evolve.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, right, the role of FP&A came out of accounting.
Hmm.
Is the reality. And, in some places, it's still often falling under accounting. You go to Europe and some other, it's a controller at the title, and then,
Right.
budgeting and forecasting. So there's always that close tie, right? We're relatives in many ways, accounting and finance. So with that came kind of that background of a little bit more of a control and a reporting type nature. Sometimes I refer to it as FP&R. I feel like early in my career was huge reporting decks. Was anyone reading
Mhm.
them? Yeah, good question.
Good
When they're
question.
100 pages long, particularly the corporate FP&A staff that have put all the reporting together. And we're seeing more and more of a need to really be deeply involved in the business. And there were some from the beginning that were that way. Some companies that realized, hey, this is really a strategic role. But now we're seeing it more and more, and COVID heightened that, the need for good FP&A, being
Right.
able to do scenario planning and really helping the cash flow. I think what we're seeing right now is also another time that a lot of companies will rely on FP&A more than normal is getting through the tariffs. Because right, some companies, if your entire materials coming from China and you just had 145% tariff on it and you make a 20% margin, what do you do? Do you double your price? Can you? Do you go out of business? So there's a lot of running numbers and really trying to understand things. I just interviewed uh, Carr and Sood, who's an expert in this space of what do you do with tariffs. So, I definitely think it's much more strategic, and the best companies realize the value of FP&A goes far beyond the numbers.
I agree. Yeah, I'm seeing that too, and I'd love to come back to the tariff piece. And I saw the promo, and then I watched the video and interview. It was excellent. I'm seeing that too, where the roles are, to your point, evolving from accounting to more of a strategic partner, a business partner, being able to provide insights, recommendations, right? And it's not just crunching the numbers of building a model, but that I always say, okay, what's the so what, now what?
Yep,
And you've really been pressing on that. I've been following you for quite some time, and I love when you're really challenging those in front of you. And I say challenging in a positive way, right? Just
sure.
just having thought provoking conversations. You've been pressing on that, and those that you have on your show, it's been amazing to hear how they're pivoting, how they're adapting. The one that you're just mentioning around tariffs, to some of the pricing challenges or that people are facing right now. You interviewed an expert that is, how do you navigate this volatility, right? And I mean, I feel like all the headliners and everything's changing week to week, and it's sometimes it can be hard on the enterprise and the industry, on the
Yeah.
company. How do FP&A teams, how can they, to those points, how can they build flexible models that respond to those real world shocks and that volatility? What would be your recommendations to that?
The number one thing for building any good model that's going to be able to be flexible and adjust is your structure. It comes down to design. You really need to think about how do the inputs, the outputs, the executive summary, the calculations, how does that all flow? How does the data flow easily through the model so you're always linking back to one place, not getting those daisy chains,
Right.
so that you have a clear assumption page and you adjust any assumption in the model updates. So you have some scenarios. Yes, sometimes that can be really complex, and software can help, especially when you start to get a lot of scenarios, a lot of complexity, run on statistical modeling. But good design and a real understanding of Excel can allow you to do an incredible amount right within, Excel or Google Sheets. And so I think the key is really thinking about design and layout and designing it in a way that you can be in a meeting and somebody can ask, well, what happens if we do this? Well, let me make that adjustment versus I'll get back to you next week because I now have to rebuild the model, which sometimes does happen. Or
Right.
even if you have a good
I've been
model,
there.
you get those surprises,
Ugh.
right? And that's why I say always keep the model as simple as possible because your business will complicate it for you.
I've had those late nights, a glass of wine and a scratch in the head. I'm like, what is going on here? It's not clicking. So you're so right. There are those moments where it's like, I'm going to get back to you in about a week. Let me bang this out. That's so good. Well, speaking of modeling, what's your take? And I know it's the hot topic. Aside from tariffs, probably even hotter, right? Is the buzz around AI? How do you feel like it's shaping this next generation of financial modeling? Is it, in your opinion?
Yeah, it is starting to. I think, eventually, and it can do some simple models now, but it will build models for us. But how I look at it is much like the computer. The computer didn't eliminate the need for the modeler. You still
Right.
had human inputs to how to go in. That's the same as AI. AI is the productivity tool, and there may be places where it builds the model, but you're still gonna have to validate the assumptions. You're still gonna have to talk to the business. There still has to be a story told. And so I think, right now it's definitely modelers are using it. It's helping. There's different areas. I don't know of any that really are building complex models fully with AI, where they're just saying, "Here, here's all my situations. Build a model." It's more, hey, help me with this formula, help me think of assumptions,
Mhm.
summarize this data so that I don't have to read it all. A lot of great areas there. And sometimes you can even have it do some analysis like, okay, now I gave you the data, analyze it and give me some thoughts on it, and then using that with your model. So I think over time we'll see more and more work and kind of build the model with us, but I still view it as a human in the loop, not a
Sure.
turn it over to AI and then drop it
Call it a
on
day.
your boss's desk, right? At least not in the near term.
Right.
In the long term, we're all dead. So what does it matter?
Oh, I love that. Oh, you're talking economics now. You're right up my alley. I
I,
love it.
I couldn't resist.
And I like those that are watching are going to feel the same way. We'll nerd out on that. The in between, and I've heard you on different webinars and videos. You've brought up and actually interviewed an expert around digital twins, right? So that's starting to get a lot of buzz, and maybe that in between as we get into that next layer of AI powered, right, complex financial models. Where do you see the future of the FP&A role with the introduction, or maybe the prevalence of digital twins? I love this tool called Scan AI, right? Scenario based modeling or scenarios, and you can do it A, B, C, D. If this, then what? And you can see the different approaches when you change variables. But digital twins is something that's really hot. What are your thoughts on that and how that's evolving the role as well in the FP&A world?
I mean, the scenario planning, just talking about for a second, I'll get into digital twin, is getting so much better. There's a tool that I've seen called whatif.io,
Yeah,
whatifi.io, that's all about visually laying out your planning. There's a number of different things. The idea of digital twins, I think what you're seeing is there's two steps here. I think first you're going to see a lot more integration because of AI of external data points, which is important whether you're doing a digital twin or modeling. The reality is companies that bring in external data that use statistical modeling along with human judgment are more accurate in their forecasts. The
right.
data is out there, right? But I always say human judgment because you have things like COVID that blow up your historical data,
Stories. Hmm.
and like Prevedier, which is a company that uses 5 million economic factors, and they will narrow it down to 40 and do a bunch of algorithms, run numbers, and say which ones are most influential on your business, was bought by one of the big FP&A tools, Board. And they're combining those two together
I love that.
to give better forecasts. And I think we're going to see more and more of that type of thing. And I think that dives in closely to a digital twin because you need good technology. Yes, you need to understand the drivers and your assumptions. But I mean, a digital twin at the end of the day is a really good model that can quickly do work for you, right?
Right.
Driver based. It's using statistical modeling. It's basically trying to taking advantage of computers and AI and the power it has to make the forecasting process better at the end of the day.
So
Now,
good.
so I think the key is though, we have to get comfortable with, we may not always understand the nitty gritty, but that we can look at
Right.
the output and be comfortable that this makes sense. I can trust this because more and more computers do, the more and more the calculations get complex, the harder it is for us to follow it all.
That's so spot on. Now, I love what you're saying about the human in the loop. Now, this AI powered or automated, a lot of these tools allow you to get more precise, right? We're always trying to minimize the variance on in either end. Can we get it where we're modeling, we're forecasting pretty dang close to what we
Mhm.
think it's going to be, right? With the assumptions that you were mentioning. Now, there's a lot of tools out there, right? I think you had your March Madness extravaganza going on with all the tools out there, and there's even more. And I know you're aware of them. What's your advice for the finance teams or finance leaders as they're looking to lean in and maybe take advantage of some of this consolidation, as you're mentioning, right? Or some of these tools that are starting to upgrade their features, get more into AI for precision or scenario based modeling. How do they get through the noise? Like, what's your recommendation as they're looking at options and scanning the software landscape? What do they do? How do they do it?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. First, before you even get to technology, the number one thing you need to remember is technology is an enabler, it's never a solution.
Great.
It's
I love that.
people, process, technology. One of my favorite quotes, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but it's by Haster, I think it's Haster Consulting. It says, new technology plus old processes equals expensive broken processes, right? So you need to always be upgrading those processes and
Right.
thinking about them. I think the next step is one, you need to look at your data and really understand what do we have? What do we need to have to make good business decisions?
Right.
How do we make sure our data is clean? Because as you go to AI, if you look today, what is it? 40% of time, 50% in some studies is spent on data prep. AI, yes, AI can clean some things up, but some of the data I've seen, yeah, they're not going to know all those assumptions, being able to teach it all that. So you need to kind of fix some things at the source. But then as far as selecting a tool, it really starts with what am I trying to accomplish with AI? And then start testing and building small. Use some free stuff, find ways you can test that. Then start to look at tools, talk to people. and make sure that you're not trying to do this all at once, trying this big, huge product and setting yourself up for failure. Because there's been a study, Connor Group does a semi-annual study of 100 plus FP&A professionals, how they're using AI. They just released
Yep.
the second one. And one thing they said is very few people are seeing the ROI yet. Very few people are seeing improvements in revenue or cost, which isn't surprising, right? It's going to take time. And that's why I say you got to remember it's long term. Don't expect immediate. Wow, this, I'm getting all kinds of value from it. Doesn't mean it can't save you time immediately. But there's a difference between saving some time and being able to actually calculate the value you got from an ROI perspective.
And I know every company's different, right? But as you're considering for yourself and for others that you're advising, consulting, or chatting with while interviewing, what are those, typical measurables, benchmarks, or KPIs that we should be following when we've decided to invest in a new FP&A tool or one that's powered by AI? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so let's just talk an FP&A tool, big company. I've done a couple software selection. Usually, what I do is I now have a questionnaire, asking about 25 questions, or someone else that uses AI. They ask around 15 questions to try to narrow down your tool set. And so that's what I do is trying to understand, okay, what size you are, how fast are you growing, how
Mm,
closely do you need to be connected to Excel and Google Sheets? How complex is your planning, dimensions, all those things. Where are you going to be in 5 years? What are you hoping to accomplish? Do you want to be really integrated with Excel? So I try to get an understanding of the customer, what systems they're using. And that can help me narrow down the list. Like if they say, hey, I want all my inputs to be entered through Excel, basically a spreadsheet native, then I got a few tools I'm going to go through. If they need Google Sheets, okay, here's a few. If they want a replacement, if they want to use Power BI, and then, okay, what size are they? And you start narrowing it down. And I just went through this exercise actually this week with a customer where I gave them a list of 10 tools. By the end of the call, we had narrowed it down to 6. They're going to start looking at them and we'll narrow it down to 3 or 5 for an RFP. But we started with, conversation. We went through an entire questionnaire. And I think you want to have some kind of structure to it because I've done 3 polls now. I did one on LinkedIn and 2 at conferences where I asked people what was the biggest challenge in basically, adopting technology and AI and planning, that kind of thing. And number one in all 3 was basically lack of awareness of what's available.
right.
People are overwhelmed with the
It's a
options.
lot.
And so they're willing to pay to help someone narrow them down. And the reality is, for almost every company, there's probably 20 tools that can work. Now, and each of them are going to have their benefits and strengths. And so, it's really about making sure you get that first list that can really work. Because often you see comparisons. Vendors do it all the time. I saw one the other day where they just used SEO and they came up with the top 10 FP&A tools. One of them isn't even an FP&A tool. Another one they're comparing that's large market to small market. And people are looking at that and taking that as a starting place. And it's like, then they're just going to get confused. Like if Anaplan and someone like Datarels, which is small to mid market, and Anaplan, which is global, those really shouldn't be in the same competitive set. And
Right.
so that's the challenge is people just go with what they hear or what they know. I mean, both of those are great tools, but you want to make sure you're comparing similar type products that make sense for your business.
It's funny. I'll talk to people too, and where they'll go first is let me hit the pricing link. I'm like, wait a second, that's not. Let's not start there. We got to talk about, to your point, it's what's under the hood currently. How complex? How big are you? Where are you going to go? And then let's start to customize what you need. And to your point, there's a lot out there. It can get noisy, and I love. I've been following. I love that you understand the marketplace, right? You have the preferred list, and it's not for those vendors. It's for the client and those that you're consulting. It's for them. We got to be customized for them. So that's amazing. And I want to come back to tools here in a sec, but you host, speaking of podcasting, you host high performing, I mean, highly watched podcasts. I'm on them. I'm watching them. What are the top themes that you're hearing from guests? I know you typically have, what they're all about or what company they're coming from, and they typically have like a focus, right? They have a vision and focus. But as you get in these conversations, I've picked up on a couple things. What are some of the top themes that you're hearing from the guests that you're having on each one of your shows?
Yeah, so let's talk FP&A tomorrow. I'd say one of the biggest things is one, you have to be curious. Curiosity comes up a lot, and then being able to communicate and build relationships, influence. hardly anyone says, hey, it's all about the numbers. Spend more time in Excel, spend
Hmm.
more time modeling. It's almost always about relationships. Another one, I've had multiple people say the number one skill you need on that soft side is empathy. And frankly, I don't think we talk about or really understand that enough.
You're right.
Sometimes that's viewed as a weakness. You kind of think sympathy. That's completely different. Chris Voss does a great job in his book, Never Split the Difference, of
Oh,
talking
so good.
of the difference of empathy. And if you don't understand it, I recommend that book.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's one thing that's really stood out to me on FP&A Tomorrow. When I go to Financial Modelers Corner, it's that modeling isn't about Excel. Excel is just the tool. Modeling is about helping the business make better decisions. And you have to learn Excel well, you have to understand finance well, and you have to understand how to design and structure a model. But it really comes down to those relationships and the conversations and being able to validate assumptions for most modelers. Yes, there are some that are just hired where they're given all the assumptions, you just build the model and walk away. But most people that are doing modeling, that is not the case, especially FP&A. So I think, those first two, it's about so much more than the numbers. That human side, the communication, the relationships really do matter. We all have the image of the accountant or the finance person with their pocket protector and their pen and their
Oh,
slide
cool.
rule and their glasses, and all they do is sit at their computer all day. But that's really not what it's about. And so I think
Right.
those are two things that stood out to me. On future finance, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me there, one is just how amazing my host Glenn Hopper is and how much time he dedicates to
He's
AI.
awesome. He is
There's
busy.
times
Like you, he's very busy.
conversations and he is so smart. There's times I'm like, all right, you two keep going because it's way over my head. And the other thing that stuck out to me is just the things people are doing in AI, those that have really invested the time. Like I haven't invested as much time as I'd like. Yes. Do I use AI daily? Sure. But could I get a lot better? Oh, I know I could. There's a number of things I have on my list I'd like to do. And so it's so fun to really talk to those people that have put in hundreds of hours and really are just getting amazing results from AI. It's always kind of fun to hear their stories.
I'm a huge fan of Glenn Hopper as well. And you both actually speak about this a lot, both finance and AI, but really the storytelling, right? Your ability to communicate clearly to those that are wanting insights, but recommendations back to that now what, so what, right? So, what's your advice there? Because I'll say, it's I've always been naturally inclined on the finance side, on math, on the numbers. It lights up my brain. It
Yep.
took some time on what I would call the operational human capital side, the ability to get out in front in a crowd or in a boardroom or in front of the private equity group that's trying to squeeze more EBITDA. It was difficult. That wasn't my
Mhm.
natural thing. I was a introvert, and sometimes I could turn it on, but I wasn't naturally extroverted. I mean, to think I would be on a show with you on your show or yours on mine, and we're being recorded. That wasn't how I wasn't even thinking about. There's no way
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
and years ago. So for those finance leaders out there that they're really good at this, they love what they're doing, but knowing whether it's automation, these FP&A tools, this AI, it's really pressing and challenging people to say, hey, you need to be more of an advisor as well. You need to be a business partner to be able to speak to what the numbers mean. And a lot of people just aren't inclined mathematically. They don't. To your point, sometimes they'll look at the P&L, sometimes they won't, or the KPI dashboards, right? But it's to make better decision making, and so you need that storyteller to help advise. Maybe it's the chief executive officer or the CFO directly to make those better decisions. What can they do? What can they do to be better communicators, better storytellers?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things. If you're someone who's really shy, you hate being in front of people, maybe it starts with just getting better, learning good design principles around visuals and
Oh,
really
great.
helping making sure the deck is put together to help tell a better story for your boss. And then it's, hey, boss, how can I present? Joining something like a Toastmasters or a speaking club. It basically comes down to, especially the presentation side. If you want to be good at presenting, you have to practice. And not just practice for sake of practice, but there needs to be some deliberate practice with some kind of feedback mechanism. Sometimes it can be as simple as using PowerPoint. PowerPoint actually has a rehearsal coach in it where it will record you and tell you how many times you use filler words and give you
Oh, I love
advice on
that.
your presentation. There's other AI tools I'm sure that are out there. with where we're at in the world. If you want to see great presenting, watch politicians. Let's ignore what you think of them, but a
Right.
great example, take Barack Obama. What he was
One of the
always
best
known
communicators.
for is his ability with that pause for emphasis, right? He'd just hold it and make everybody think about what he was saying.
Just
And
like
so
that.
those are great examples to learn from, but it really comes down to practice. And also, if you're terrified, there may be times, maybe even talking to a mental health professional of how to overcome the anxiety. Watching some videos that give you points of how to breathe and calm yourself down.
Mm.
There's the practice side, and then there's the reality that there was once a report, one time where they did a study, one of them came out and said, people fear public speaking more than they fear death.
That's right. Death and heights. I mean, it was down the list. The one was public speaking, and I get it because I'll tell you, I'll be, and it doesn't happen as often as anymore, but I'll be drenched, just anxious to the max
Yeah,
because it just wasn't my what I was I think naturally built for. Maybe who knows, but yeah. So I
sure.
hope
It's something you had to learn to overcome. So you have to learn how to
totally.
calm yourself and put
That's right.
yourself in the right frame of mind. And for some people, that's the first thing you have to learn to do before you can even really get in front of people. And for others, you may be fine or you may only need a little bit. But there's kind of those two sides to it. There is a mental aspect that we all have to deal with in learning to speak publicly at some level.
Right. Well, circling back on AI, it's been real hot over the last year and a half for sure, where we're seeing a lot of these AI tools get into the what I would call the accounting space. AR, AP, invoicing is a big one with some of the newest technology and some of these models and what they can do, vision and memory and things like that. And, I know I've shared very lightly about Valisights with you, but I saw an opportunity to have a suite of products, an ecosystem in the strategic finance space, the FP&A space, right? Whether that be cash flow or P&L balance sheets, KPI dashboards, right? Gap analysis. And been testing these products over the last year and a half to 2 years on a company called Now CFO, based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Great organization.
Yeah, I know now CFO.
Yeah, Jim and team out there, Jim Bennett and team are outstanding. Just first class people. I mean, they're amazing, and they obviously take care of their clients really well. And so we launched recently Valisights, which, for those that don't know, are AI powered strategic financial tools, as I just mentioned. And we're seeing a lot of great buzz there. And there's a lot of great tools, so many great partnerships with actually tools that we even mentioned on the show today, those that are found on the Final Four, or sorry, the March Madness tournament that you put together, just great organizations. And we're looking forward to playing with and partnering up. But as you saw some of it, and I know I posted just a couple of things out there, any thoughts on what you're seeing in that space, or even specific to Valisights, or maybe even any feedback? Shoot, put me on the spot here on this recording on this first episode. I'd love it.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit. It's exciting what you're doing. I haven't had enough time to really dig into it to give an opinion of how well I think it's working, where the strengths and weaknesses are. I'll be completely honest, but I think the idea is great, and I will speak to the AI. So I see this in kind of two
Yes.
buckets. There's the traditional tools that are bolting on AI. And some of them will do a fabulous job of it, and some of them will be winners. But in general, the AI native tools have a benefit. They don't have the legacy tech debt. They
Right.
don't have some of those requirements they have to deal with where, like, I wish I could re architect this. Which, when you re architect something with thousands of customers, you got to fly the plane while building it. And that's
Right. It's
extremely
tough.
difficult, right? Would any of you, if I asked anyone, would they volunteer to fly in a plane while it's being built? The answer is
Definitely.
no,
Exactly. No, that
right?
is
And so
the
that
point.
that's what I think with AI is there is an advantage for those that are AI, enabled. At the same time, it's really finding the companies that are adding value because there's a lot of products that have come out quickly that I think have been, and I think you would agree with this. There's been some that have been half baked, not quite
Absolutely.
there,
Yeah.
and so it's all about finding what works for you. And I think you guys have some great ideas that you're doing there. I love the idea of strategic and really trying to leverage AI and find out how can we make people's lives easier. And if the tool isn't doing that, then find a different tool.
Totally. I'm right with you. And that's what it was made for, right? Especially being in the fractional CFO space, I found sometimes, especially for those out there listening, you might relate with this. Sometimes your capacity to acquire clients hits a maximum point because of the time. You have a finite amount of time, and we know the grind of building models for those that are really truly trying to create value, right? Be precise and allow for better decisions to be made using those models and those tools is important, but you can only do so much with a certain amount of time. And so these AI powered tools significantly reduce that time, right? Significantly improve precision and allows you, for those that are looking to acquire more clients, allows you to do that, to help more people, to help more businesses. And so we're excited. We tested it on over 500 fractional CFOs at Now CFO, amongst their hundreds and thousands of clients. And so we're really excited about it. So, no, thanks for even taking a look. I'm, again, honored that you're here and even that you took a peek, and looking to make you proud. And like I said, I earned my seed on the
Well,
on the tournament.
I'm excited for you. It'll be fun
I
to see how
appreciate it.
that goes forward. I like, we're seeing a lot of stuff now, especially since AI's come out, focused on the fractional CFO. And I know
Right.
that's the area you're first focusing on. So I think that's great. I mean, it's becoming so big. I'm looking at later this year, and we'll have to talk, doing a showcase to highlight these new fractional CFO tools, where
Excellent.
it's just going to be focused on for these advisory firms and the fractional. Come see what the tools are out there and see if there might be a better way than just the spreadsheet. I always like to say a better way than just the spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet isn't going away. I don't care
It's
what
not.
tools you add.
Right.
It's about how do you use them better together. It's like these people that try to say Excel versus Power BI. No, it's not Excel versus, it's Excel and Power BI. The best people know how to leverage both of them
Sure.
in the right way, just like the best people know how to leverage technology in the different areas it's needed. It's not, nobody builds a house with a hammer, and nobody's going to build a $1 billion business with just Excel. Or
Right.
probably somebody that has, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's
No,
always
I love
one.
that. There's always that one, and then it's hard to replicate from there. It's just like the timing. You know, I'm curious on your thoughts here, because we're going to have a lot of people. Number one, people that listen to your show, and I'm sure they have the same questions, and those that will start to listen to this. We just launched, right? They're having thoughts around. Well, I love these tools. I've done my research. I need to go pitch this to my CFO or maybe the CEO. I'm sure you've dealt with that, right? On how do I get to propose this? How do I propose this? How do I talk about the ROI, the investment that is needed, and what it's going to do to productivity, to precision, to greater insights, and for decision making? How does someone that's listening to this say, okay, I want to do this. I know maybe a handful of the tools that I know are going to be great for my organization, right? How do I get my CEO and CFO to say, yes, let's do it?
Well, think about, how do you try to get your business partner to agree to something you think needs to be done, an analysis you've done. It's the ability to influence. And so, yes, you want some data, you want some visuals, you want some narrative, but more than anything, you want to know your audience,
Right.
know that person's pain point. Like, why you want the tool is more than likely going to be different than why he would want the tool. If
Good
you're like, hey,
call.
it's going to save me 10 hours a week, and he's like, yeah, I'm fine with hiring another person. This is $300,000. Work late. There'll
Right.
be some people that may be what they're thinking. There's others that won't. But
Sure.
I might be exaggerating a little bit, but you get the idea. Depends on the
Absolutely.
company. In some cases, I'm probably understating it. Oh wait, no. But and so the biggest thing is, what are they going to value? How can you show them that that value is going to be worth it for them and worth it for what they want to accomplish, what their goals are? For a CFO, it's CFO wants to keep the CEO happy. He wants to keep the business growing. He wants to manage the board and the investors, right? Make sure he has a healthy company. So, what is it about that tool that will make it easier for him to accomplish what he's trying to accomplish? What are their strategic goals? And anytime you can sell it in that way, the better. As far as that actual ROI, the reality is usually they're very subjective, a lot of assumptions. And yes, you have to put one together, but the focus is much more on how can you really show it solves pain points versus a
Right.
strict mathematical exercise.
That's so good. And I love, putting the audience and even end users, not just your own self as the use case. And what are you solving for? What are the pain points for? And in addition to what you're saying, right, not just the data, but have you manually done all this? Because I think that's important. You kind of were referencing that earlier is don't try to solve everything and just throw automation or throw AI at it. It's just a tool, right? If you don't fully understand and reverse engineer the workflows of how you do a model or how you present something or how you crunch this or that or how you pull insights from or how XYZ,
Mhm.
AI is not going to solve for it because you're not going to understand what the output is doing. You're not going to understand or know if it's right or wrong. I mean, for the most part. So I love what you're saying there is you have to understand who your audience is. That's huge, right? Sometimes we go and we get excited and we rush. I know I have. I rushed to
Oh, I've
something that
never done that.
I'm excited about something. I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. I'm like, okay, this is a great idea for you, but we're running, 1,000+ team member organization, right? This is great for you, but how does this impact us as a whole? And so thinking bigger, right? So slowing down, think bigger. Who is
100%.
your target audience? And then that one pain point. Don't try to solve all nine. Start with one. What's going to give you the biggest juice out of the squeeze, right? So such good feedback. You mentioned it. You posted it the other day, and I went back to it a couple times. You said with all of this AI automation and these tools, we're building on quicksand. I'm like, oh, that was intriguing. I want to read more. And what you were saying is the world is just changing so fast. There's so much out there. You mentioned some tools today. Even those, we're seeing something change just about every week, every single month. And so how do our finance leaders, FP&A leaders, CFOs, how do they keep up without, I want to get to mental health, this burnout, right? It can be a lot.
Yeah, it's a great question. And where that came from, the building on quicksand, that was Joyce Lee in a Future Finance episode. She gave an example of how they use one of the models, and it made her realize you need to build more of the ideas you have and realize the models are just part of the input. They're really kind of building around the models because they're changing so quickly.
Right. So
And
good.
so that was really good advice. I think, but in general, right, it's really tough because we see things changing so quickly. So I think it comes back to the basics, right? Business is built on a product or service, something you're offering. You have a strategy. That strategy is how you differentiate yourselves. Then it's about execution and adding value. And if you focus on those fundamentals of a business, you focus on do I have am I in the right market? Do I have the right product? Do I have the right strategy? Do I have the people and stuff I need in place to execute? Then look to AI to help you be even better, to be more productive. And don't stress. I think some people worry, well, I'm getting left behind.
Mm,
If everything's going well and you're following the strategy and you have a plan for it, yeah, maybe you need to speed up a little bit, but trust in yourself and keep working. Don't just go after AI or technology because you're getting left behind. I think it still comes back to the fundamentals, right? There'll be some incredible businesses for years to come that aren't using AI at all. Now that doesn't mean they shouldn't, but it can be done.
sure.
At the same time, most businesses will use it. And even those that may be incredible and are doing very well could probably use it to be even more productive. So I think, make sure you're doing the basics really well and then figure out how technology, whether it's AI or other technology, makes you even more efficient and effective.
Such great advice. It's interesting because I've been chatting a lot about AI being a competitive advantage, but it's interesting. That doesn't mean it's for everything, every business, everyone. Your competitive advantage might be that you don't use AI. It's actually interesting that you
Well, and
said
in
that a
some
little bit.
ways, I would argue a little bit of mine is in the sense of if I ask you what you know me for, what are the top three things that come to mind? Let's do a little kind of exercise here.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So, number one, you're the ultimate finance connector. I mean, your ability to network and create relationships with finance leaders, and you do it through education. You do it through actually showing how you do, right? So, showing by example. So, I guess another form of education, and then you connect others together, right? So providing insights, providing tools for people to do their jobs in a great way. I think and use your platforms to do that, and I appreciate that about you. And then you're also in it, right? You have the experience. You have, as you shared in your journey, you've been in it. You do the grind. You don't just talk about it. Like you're actually in the industry,
Mhm.
showing us up what's up and telling us, hey, watch out for it. Like you're the watch out for us. Do not do this. I've done it. You don't want to fall in that same bear trap,
Yeah. So as I listened to you, the first thing you said, connector.
right?
Can AI help with that? Sure. But at its core, can I use AI to replace those relationships and those connections?
No.
No, but I can be more efficient with it. Did AI give me my experience? And does it give any of us our experience? No. Can we gain experience from AI? Can it help us be better? Yes. And so I would argue for most of us, the core differentiator and thing we do that allows us to be great at whatever we're trying to do is not AI, right? Coca-Cola, they're known for people love their product, the drink they put together. Can AI help them? Could it potentially improve the formula? Sure. But their marketing stuff is about connecting. So many businesses are about relationships and the emotional connection. What is Apple known for? Their ads emotionally connect.
Sure.
Creates a fanboy. It's really hard right now. Some people might be able, we don't necessarily emotionally connect with AI. Can AI help us create a emotionally connected story? Sure. And in some cases, it could do a better job than us. Yes. But the AI itself is not what's creating the connection. It's that it helped us create a better emotional story or connection.
I got to tell you, you lost me at Coca-Cola because all I could hear is during a summer day. And that you're right. It's that emotional experience and then the nostalgia, right? Because I went to four different memories as a child and even in, up to college. And I just think, man, what a great day for a Coke. That was so good. But you're right. You talked about it earlier, the empathy, communication skills, storytelling. While AI can help you, it's not necessarily replacing that for you. That this is where we need to understand there's things for AI and automation and the tools we were referencing earlier, including Valisights. But there's those X factors, those human X factors, those things that cannot be replaced that we still need
Mm-hmm.
to lean in on. And I know there's a lot of people out there. We were talking about mental health and burnout, but there's also this fear of not just being left behind, but being replaced. Because we're seeing a lot of these headliners and AI noise in the financial space, and we're seeing it in different industries too. But the same sentiment is, wow, am I going to get replaced, right? And I know there's tools out there, and there's some talk about it, some not. When we speak of Valisights, it's not to replace anyone; it's to augment, it's to create value, to assist you in doing things faster, more precise, so that you can go do some leisure things that we want to do, or maybe some other things, developmental type of things, or educational type of things. Shoot, go watch the episodes on your three podcasts. Like, go do more of that and less of the model building,
I'm
or at
all
least
for that. Everybody go watch my
go
podcast
do it.
after you watch Valsites first. Then
Exactly. Well, thanks for that, Paul. I appreciate that. Well, something we talked about it when I was on your show, and then I saw your recent post, and I really appreciated. It was a vulnerable post. It was a thought-provoking post. It was about mental health, and I'm a big fan of this. I'm very open about it. I had the opportunity on your show to talk about my perspective and some of the challenges that I went through, earlier on as a parent, as an early parent, after my first boy, and being in the financial space or just in the corporate environment, or even being an entrepreneur, it can be challenging, right? There's just a lot going on and a lot of plates spinning, right? Or juggling that you're looking to do. But I do think back to, AI not replacing, but augmenting or helping. I do believe, a lot of these tools that you've promoted, that we promote, that and a lot of this AI technology that's coming about can really help us uh, offload a lot of the things that we do as finance professionals. It could truly help you get to the answer faster, build maybe something faster, right? More precise, and allow you to not have to memorize, stare at this white light, these blue lights all the time on our screens, and allow you to go do other things to relieve yourself from just being so wrapped, because we're all passionate about this and we want the model to work, we want the forecast to work, we want to help the organization, and sometimes that it can be we can get obsessed, at least I know I can get obsessive with it because I love it, but sometimes that's not the most healthy thing. And so I appreciate you it was something about completely, it wasn't finance related, it was about an athlete, and sometimes it's about asking, as a parent, and I appreciate that you shared what the father had said. Sometimes don't take what you hear from your kiddos at face value, like everything's okay. We need to dig in deeper. And that's not just from a personal family life, that can be professionally too. For those of us like you and I and some others that have platforms where we're able to connect with others, it's digging in a little bit further, right? Just especially when you're just feeling, my gut is firing off. I don't know why, but we can dig in a little further there. So I appreciated you for posting that. That was really cool.
Yeah, I'll say a little bit. I think there's a guy who gave a talk once, and he said, he goes, treat everybody as if in their if as if they're in serious trouble,
Hmm.
and more than half the time you'll be right. And this person got this advice. This guy was in his 80s when he gave this talk, and he was a young man when he heard that. And he's like, that doesn't make sense. Like, what is this guy talking about? And he goes, the older I've become, the more I've realized that true. We all have our challenges. We all have difficult things in our life, some more than others. Some you look at and you're like, how do they even bear that? How do they manage? And AI can, if we use it in the right way, it can help reduce maybe some of the stress or work we have to do to allow us to focus more on ourselves. But at the end of the day, it's really about how as a society can we get to the point where mental health is, we're as open to talk about it as physical health. Right? If I break my arm, everybody's going to know. I can't hide it. But I could have tried to commit suicide last night and I could hide it the next day
Hmm.
and nobody would know.
It's
I
heavy,
mean, that's the reality. And I think we probably know people who have done that.
right?
We've all lost people. So how do we make sure we're doing everything we can to let people know we're there for them? And despite that, we will still lose people we love, whether it's a
Hmm.
family member or a friend, and we will all have guilt. That's the reality. But the more we're willing to speak about it, the more we all make our voices heard, the more it can make a difference. I still go back to, this is 30, almost 30 years ago now, sitting with a girl that I was good friends with at the time who had been struggling with some suicide. And she commented one of the things that kept her from trying suicide was seeing the pain of my brother going through it.
Hmm.
She goes, knowing how much that hurt and knowing how much it would hurt others if I left. It's like, okay, that was a moment where I'm like, okay, me being willing to share made a difference. And
Yeah.
if it can help just one person, it's worth it. So, I mean, that's really how I look at it. I will continue to preach it. I do it all the time. I'm going to do the
Yeah.
suicide walk again this year. And I believe, a lot of people, there's been a stigma on it for a long time. A lot of people don't understand it. And at time they do. I have another guy who text messaged me and he goes, I saw your post, but I never really paid that close attention. I never thought it would happen to me. And he just lost his brother to suicide,
Oh, my goodness.
and so it gave him a whole new perspective. And so I think that, it's hard to know all what to say on that. But the biggest thing is try to be aware of others. And remember, at the end of the day, work is just work. People and relationships are what matter. Nobody's going to their deathbed. And if you are, you're sick. That's all I'm going to say. If on your deathbed you think, I wish I would have worked more and made more money,
Right.
it's just not what we do.
That's so good. Thanks for being vulnerable, for sharing your personal story and those that you've impacted, and for everyone out there, right? And I think I could speak for you, Paul, because you've been outstanding. I mean, you're so accessible, and for those that want to chat more about this, there's a lot of people in our space. Maybe you're to your point. We're sometimes can be not just introverted, but we'll isolate a little bit in our
Mhm.
industry, right? Just with because of the magic that we make happen.
Sure.
Sometimes it's just being alone for a little bit that makes things work and click. No distractions. But I'd love for anyone that would love to chat more about this. Maybe it's not just you personally or someone that you know is going through something. Feel free to reach out. Please do on LinkedIn or through email. I'd love to help. My story was around panic attacks and anxiety and just not realizing the body was firing off an alarm. Too many things going on. So for those of you that experienced that as well, please reach out. And Paul, thanks for allowing me to go through this topic
Yeah, of
today. This is
course.
great. Well, I know you also advise and help out a lot of new FP&A professionals out there. And you were mentioning it earlier on pre-show around just you using certain AI tools. One of them being OpenAI's ChatGPT. And so, as you're dabbling in and you use it for a lot of things, what would you recommend to those new FP&A leaders or fractional CFOs on how to just lean in if it's for the first time, right? It's like, you know what, I'm gonna start using it. what would you recommend?
I mean, I don't care where, just start using it, whether it's personal or professional life.
Right.
One of the best ways to learn Excel, try modeling your own life financially.
I
You'll
love
learn a
it.
ton of things. So don't worry at first. If you haven't been using it, don't worry whether it's personal or professional. Just start using it. I'd say 95% of people are using it now, just about everybody. So, if you're using it mostly personally, ask yourself where you can use it professionally. Start with easy areas and build from there. Take a course, invest time. At the end of the day, it's a combination from learning from people and learning from practice. The best do both. Some you sometimes have to finish it all, figure it all out by practice because there's nobody to ask. But generally, the best way is a combination. And so that's what I'd advise. And don't be afraid to reach out to someone and ask for help if you need it.
So good. Yes, raise your hand and reach out. All right, so I have a final question, and I know I'm biased, but this may be my favorite question. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there asking this or have thought about asking you this. So we're all wondering, what product do you use on that famous beard of yours? What are you using? I wish I could grow a beard like that. I get two
Let's
hairs.
see. It changes all the time. I don't have a consistent product. I'm one of those guys, whatever the wife brings home or whatever's cheapest
I
at the
love
store
it.
the time I go. There are a few I don't like, I've learned over time. But for the most part, I've probably used 10 or 15 different products. I'm starting narrowing it down to ones I like more. I'd say, as far as when I do the handlebar mustache, I do like Death Grip. It's a
Death
mustache
grip. Oh,
wax.
you heard it. There it is. And now they're gonna fly off the shelves. I love
So
it.
that's probably the one I use the most as far as mustache. The rest of it, I am a beard balm versus butter guy. I do a little bit of oil, partly because beard balm does a lot better job of shaping and my hair goes everywhere.
Yeah.
And since it's so big now, early on butter was fine, but now it's really a beard balm.
That's so good.
There
Well,
you go.
I love it. Now we know. Now we're gonna go purchase. Well, for
But I
those that
will
don't
come out
know,
with my own product line one day. Just wait. It's gonna be the FP&A guy.
please do, please do. I can't even grow a beard, and I'll buy it. I'll put on my hair or
If
something.
everybody who can't grow a beard will buy it, I will definitely
Hey, maybe they'll
put
let
it
me
out.
grow a beard like yours. I'll definitely buy. I'll buy
Yeah, I'll
two.
come out with pretend beard growth
There you go.
because that's what it
You
will be.
seriously
It'll be
should.
like
No
the old
joke.
1800s guy, the quack that gave you the medicine that was going to cure you.
That's right.
That's what my beard growth product will be like.
I love it. Well, I'll buy it. I'm on it. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I know the audience is truly going to appreciate how you really blended the FP&A world and how AI is reshaping and evolving the industry, but also making sure, and people, I know they'll hear this, is there's the human factor, there's the empathy, there's the communication skills, there's the storytelling, there is the education portion on how you can pour into yourself, asking for help, things that AI cannot do, right? So AI to augment, not to replace. And so I really appreciated the technical side of things that we chatted about, and even the cultural things that I know a lot of people can relate with. So we really appreciate you, Paul. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you, if they want to watch some of the experts that you're bringing on? And then you're on a lot of shows too. I've noticed on your webinars and some of these events and podcasts, including today. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so I mean, the easiest way you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. It's the FP&A guy. That's literally instead of my name. If you were to just do linkedin.com/, and you can find me. Yeah, or just look me up there. I have my website, thefpnaguy.com. I'm on YouTube. I have the podcasts. So I'm out there plenty of ways. If you just Google the FP&A guy on Google or any other platform, you type it in, you'll find plenty of ways to reach me. Feel free to contact me. I try to make that moniker as visible as possible.
So good.
Hence the hat.
Exactly. The hat, the logo. I love it. I love it all. Well, thank you so much again. Such an honor and a pleasure. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you too, just lifting up the hood, slightly taking a peek at Valisights. And for the audience out there, we're ready to level up your game with your financial tools, specifically powered by AI. And as I mentioned, turn those Excel or Google Sheets, static spreadsheets into strategic financial insights that will really make a difference. So check it out, valisights.com. And I'm so excited. First episode, Paul, of the Valisights podcast. Thank you again. I'm
Love it.
Albert Ramos. And Paul and everyone out in the audience, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Albert. All right, you made it.